Hi, my friends. Today I want to present you a new story. Enjoy watching it.
The courtroom was suffocating. The air felt thick, charged with tension. I sat rigid in my chair, my palms damp, my pulse a steady drum in my ears. Across from me, Aunt Aurelia sat poised, her lips pressed into a thin, triumphant line. She was dressed impeccably, as if she had already won. The judge adjusted his glasses and cleared his throat. We are here today to determine the rightful ownership of the Shepherd country house, as per the last will and testament of Nellie Shepherd. His voice was calm, measured, but every word sent my heart racing. My grandmother, Nellie Shepherd, had left me the country house in her will, a house I had spent my childhood in, the place where I had found solace after my parents' deaths. But Aurelia, my father's younger sister, had contested it, claiming it was meant to be hers. Aurelia stood, her voice rich with feigned sorrow. Your Honor, my mother's country house was meant to be mine. I was her devoted daughter, caring for her in her final years. But my niece, Maggie, unfairly received the property through manipulation. I clenched my fists beneath the table. Lies. All of it. My lawyer, Mr. Calloway, stood smoothly. Your Honor, the will clearly states that the country house was left to my client, Maggie Shepherd. There was no mistake, no coercion. We intend to prove that Ms. Aurelia Shepherd's claims are not only baseless, but deliberately deceptive. Aurelia let out a soft, practiced gasp, casting herself as the victim. My own mother wouldn't have cut me out unless she was deceived. The judge turned to me. Ms. Shepherd, do you have anything to say before we proceed with evidence? I swallowed hard and stood. My voice, steady despite my nerves, filled the room. My grandmother knew exactly what she was doing when she left me the house, and I intend to prove it. The battle had begun. A tense hush settled over the courtroom as my lawyer stood. Your Honor, we call Dexter Shepherd to the stand. I exhaled, gripping the edge of the table. My uncle, my grandmother's eldest son, was my last hope in exposing Aunt Aurelia's deception. Dexter rose from his seat, moving toward the witness stand with the slow, deliberate steps of a man carrying the weight of painful truth. He was a tall, broad-shouldered man, but today there was something weary in the way he adjusted his tie. He took his oath, then sat down, his hands folding over each other. Aurelia, seated just a few feet away, stiffened. Her perfectly composed expression faltered, her fingers tightening into fists on her lap. My lawyer wasted no time. Mr. Shepherd, can you clarify your sister's claim that she was always meant to inherit the country house? Dexter hesitated for the briefest moment, then spoke in a steady voice. That's not true. Aurelia's head snapped toward him, her eyes narrowing. Dexter continued. Our mother, Nellie Shepherd, never intended to leave the house to Aurelia, and I know that because of what she did while Mom was still alive. He paused, glancing at me. She tried to sell it behind her back. A collective murmur rippled through the courtroom. The judge racked his gavel. My lawyer leaned forward. Mr. Shepherd, can you explain what you mean? Dexter exhaled sharply. Years ago, before Mom fell ill, Aurelia had already arranged to sell the house. She found a buyer, some developer who wanted to tear it down and build a resort. Mom found out just in time. She was heartbroken. She confronted Aurelia, and they had one of the worst fights I've ever seen. Aurelia swore she had no choice, that she needed the money. But after that, Mom made up her mind. Aurelia was never to inherit the house. Gasps spread through the courtroom. I turned slightly, watching the color drain from Aurelia's face. Her lawyer shot up. Objection, Your Honor. This is pure speculation. My lawyer remained calm. Your Honor, we have documented proof of a real estate inquiry in Aurelia's name regarding the sale of the property. The judge nodded. Overruled. Proceed. Aurelia's lips parted, her breath uneven. For the first time, uncertainty flickered in her gaze. My lawyer faced Dexter again. So, to be clear, your mother disinherited Aurelia because she knew she would sell the house. Yes, Dexter said firmly. Mom loved that house. She wanted it to stay in the family. She left it to Maggie because she trusted her to honor that wish. I clenched my hands together, my heart beat a steady drum. I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. You didn't care about the house, Aunt Aurelia. You never did. You only wanted the money. She whirled toward me, her expression a twisted mix of fury and desperation. "You don't understand. I was supposed to have that house. It wasn't fair that she clamped her mouth shut, realizing too late what she had admitted. The judge's expression hardened. "Miss Shepherd, you knowingly attempted to sell a property that was not yours and then pursued legal action under false pretenses. This is a serious matter." Aurelia slumped into her seat, her hands trembling. I exhaled slowly. The tide had turned. The truth was finally surfacing. Aurelia's expression turned sharp, but she said nothing. Perhaps for the first time, she realized her lies were crumbling. And this was just the beginning. The tension in the courtroom was suffocating. Aurelia sat stiffly beside her lawyer, her face an unreadable mask, but I saw the flicker of panic in her eyes. The truth was closing in. My lawyer stood, a folded piece of yellowed paper in his hand. "Your Honor, we present new evidence," a handwritten letter from Nellie Shepherd herself, detailing her final wishes regarding the country house. Aurelia shot up. "That's impossible." The judge's gavel struck. "Miss Shepherd, sit down." She obeyed, her fingers digging into the armrest of her chair. My lawyer unfolded the letter with precision, the fragile paper rustling like a whisper from the past. He cleared his throat. This letter was written by Mrs. Nellie Shepherd 2 months before her passing and was kept in a safety deposit box, only to be opened in the event of a legal dispute over the inheritance. Aurelia paled. The lawyer began reading, "To my beloved granddaughter Maggie. I know there may come a time when my decision is questioned, but I want to be clear. This house is meant for you. I have seen Aurelia's intentions with my own eyes. She has spoken of selling it, of turning my cherished home into mere profit. She has already tried once, and she will try again. This house is not just land and walls. It is our history, our memories. Maggie, I leave it to you because I know you will protect it, as I have. This is my final decision, and it must not be contested. With love, Grandmother Nellie." Silence followed. A suffocating, absolute silence. Aurelia's lips trembled. That's a forgery." The judge turned to my lawyer. "Do you have verification of this document's authenticity?" My lawyer nodded. "Yes, Your Honor. The letter was notarized and the handwriting has been analyzed and confirmed to belong to Nellie Shepherd." He handed a sealed file to the bailiff. Aurelia looked between us, her eyes darting wildly, like a trapped animal. "This isn't right. It was supposed to be mine." I finally spoke, my voice calm but firm. "No, Aunt Aurelia. It was never yours. And now everyone knows why." For the first time since the trial began, Aurelia had no words, and I knew we were winning. The courtroom fell into a stunned silence. The evidence was damning. The case was all but over. My pulse pounded in my ears as the judge gathered his notes, preparing to deliver his verdict. I could already taste victory. But then, a court clerk rushed through the heavy oak doors, clutching a folder. "Your Honor," he called breathlessly, "a new document has just surfaced in the courthouse archives. It was filed by Mrs. Nellie Shepherd herself before her passing." Aurelia's head snapped up. Her fingers dug into the table's edge. My stomach twisted. What was this? Another trick. The judge frowned and motioned for the document. The moment his eyes scanned the pages, his expression changed, his brows lifting in surprise. The tension in the room thickened. He cleared his throat. "According to this document, Mrs. Shepherd confirmed in legal writing that Ms. Aurelia Shepherd had already received her portion of the inheritance, an advance payment in the form of stocks and a substantial cash sum. The country house was never intended for her." Aurelia's chair scraped loudly as she pushed to her feet. "That's not true," she shrieked. "She would never." My lawyer cut in, his voice calm but sharp. "The document is signed, notarized, and legally binding, Your Honor. There is no dispute. Aurelia received her share years ago. This lawsuit was a fraud from the beginning." Aurelia staggered back, as if the words had physically struck her. The reality of her failure sank in. There was no more fighting it. No more lies to twist. The judge set the document down and turned to her. "Miss Shepherd, your case is dismissed. Any further pursuit of this inheritance would constitute fraud." A heavy silence hung in the air. Then, with a final bang of the gavel, it was over. Aurelia let out a strangled sound, half a sob, half a curse. She turned to me, her eyes burning with resentment. "You think you've won," she hissed. "This house will bring you nothing but misery." I met her gaze, steady and unflinching. "No, Aunt Aurelia. It will finally bring peace." As she stormed out of the courtroom, alone and defeated, I exhaled. The battle was over. The house was mine, not just as an inheritance, but as the home it was always meant to be.
Friends, what do you think of this story? Write your opinion in the comments. Would you like more stories? Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell button so you don't miss any videos. See you tomorrow.